Whatever. Nothing I can do about it. All right. Hello, YouTube. We're having some TikTok issues today. Oh my God. They changed all the settings on TikTok again. Again. Hello, TikTok. They changed all the settings again. Again. As always happens on TikTok. Hello, guys. How are we doing this evening? Oh my God. Oh my God, my God, my God. So much crazy news. So much. Not even, there's no Epstein news, although Epstein's obviously a big story. I will say the end of democracy and NATO is a bigger story than Epstein, but still worth mentioning. Oh, man, oh man. Lots of very bad news today, guys. But I think you're probably aware of some of it, or a lot of it anyway. It's just very, very bad stuff. What's going on now? I was watching actually I gotta remember that a Greek friend of mine just sent a message. I gotta make sure to look at that when I'm done so I don't forget. Oh yeah, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, who we probably have to get back on the show if she would like to come back. Did a broadcast or a video today talking about I forget what she called it, like electoral autocracy, something like that, or electoral authoritarians or whatever. How basically you get these wannabe dictators who come to power via elections, and they gut the system, but they basically gut the system so you don't have fair elections, but they keep having elections. And Putin did this. Orban in Hungary is doing it, and Trump, she obviously argues, is doing it here as well. The other interesting thing I saw, which I almost was going to do a whole thing on it, and I thought, oh, TikTok will love this because, TikTok, we can't, if it's not velvet puppies, TikTok gets upset. But the New York Times did, just apropos of nothing, the New York Times did a very interesting historical perspective on the something like 38 days it took for the Nazis in Germany to eliminate democracy in that country after being elected. Literally, elections put into power, 38 days. But what they mentioned, which was very interesting, is one of the big things the Nazis did in Germany was they got rid of the, what's the word I'm looking for? They got rid of the goalkeepers. They got rid of the any kind of organization or institution or office or whatever that's meant to keep things sane, that's meant to keep things legal, right? That's meant to oversight. Exactly. Thank you, Luis. And they just got rid of everything. And basically, you get rid of the oversight, and who's going to stop you? And even weird, what they said too, is they said a lot of the reforms, the bad things that the H-man did in Germany, they were put up for a vote. There was some big vote in particular. Thank you. Was it Mick? Thank you, Mick. Thank you, Renee. There was some big vote in particular, and 2/3 of the members of the Reichstag, which is the German, at the time, the German parliament, 2/3 of the members voted for it, for giving the H-man dictator in Germany all that power. 2/3 voted for it, even though a lot of them didn't support him. I mean, sound familiar? Anyway, good evening, guys. Very scary stuff happening here in America. We're going to talk about it to the degree we get away with talking about it. It's very bad. The big news broke last night at midnight. I thought it was fake. I double-checked this story so many times. Donald Trump sent a text message to the Prime Minister of Norway saying that part of the reason he's threatening to go to war over Greenland is the Norwegian Prime Minister didn't give Trump the Nobel Prize. Yeah. Amanda, we're going to talk about that later. Trump, I'm going to read the entire text message to you. It was a text message. It wasn't a tweet. It was a text message. And then Trump ordered the White House to deliver the text message to all of the other European ambassadors in Washington. I'm going to read this to you. Trump explains that he's going after Greenland because Norway didn't give him the Nobel Prize. I'm going to read this tweet to you, or this text to you first, and then we're going to talk about it in detail because it's so crazy what's on here. I mean, no, this was first broken by Nick Schifrin, who is a national security foreign affairs correspondent for PBS, which is public broadcasting here in America. He's very good. And I just kept looking again and again and again to make sure it wasn't fake, like that it wasn't a fake Nick Schifrin account. I couldn't believe it. Obviously, it's been a day now. Everyone's confirmed it. Norwegian government confirmed it. Everyone confirmed it. Let me read you the text first, and then we'll get going. Anyway, welcome back, guys. Please keep the gifts coming. I know these topics are serious, but I appreciate your gifts. They help support my work. So please do keep them coming. Dear Jonas, okay, Trump writes a text to the Prime Minister of Norway. Then afterwards, I'm going to walk you through just how crazy this text is, okay? Dear Jonas, Trump writes to the Prime Minister of Norway, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark, by the way, he's writing to the Prime Minister of Norway, and he's bitching about Denmark and Greenland. Norway doesn't own Denmark or Greenland. Greenland and Denmark are part of the same kingdom of Denmark. This is sort of an important point here. He decided to bitch at and punish the Prime Minister of Norway because Norway didn't give him the Nobel Prize. He's going to take Greenland away from Denmark. And then he even mentions Denmark, showing he's getting them confused. Okay. I can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only a boat that landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. Few things here. He was for peace last year, Trump says, but now he's not for peace because he didn't get the Nobel Prize. Well, you can kiss the Nobel Prize goodbye now, because when you admit that the only reason you were for peace last year is you wanted an award and now you didn't get the award, so now you're going to no longer be for peace. Thank you, Gene. Is that the wig? That's the wig. All right, you get the wig for that one. You do get the wig for that one. Sorry. Somebody just got a TikTok gift that does include putting on the Trump wig. We get the Trump wig. Thank you for that. It's like I sometimes don't feel good with these props because it's like these are such horrible topics, but maybe now more than ever we need the props, right? So you'll get the wig for a minute. So first of all, he was for peace last year, but he's not for peace this year because Norway didn't give him the Nobel Prize. Well, you're never getting the Nobel Prize now, because if you admit that the only reason you were for peace last year, thank you, Carrie, is because you wanted a prize and now you're not for peace anymore, well, kiss that goodbye. 2, Trump thinks Norway is Denmark. Trump wrote to the Prime Minister of Norway. I'm getting it right, of Norway, and said, you didn't give me the Nobel Prize, therefore I'm going to invade Greenland. Except Greenland's part of Denmark. Why would it? Why? This is like flames, right? Like, why would Norway not giving Trump the Nobel Prize have anything to do with Denmark controlling Greenland? He's trying to punish Norway by taking Greenland away from Denmark. Christina, on behalf of all of us, I apologize. All I can say is he's 100% serious, and you guys need to convince your government that they better stand up to this guy, because we're talking Sudetenland at this point. The European, we'll get into this, but the European governments, I think, are still thinking of appeasing Trump. Let's go on. Trump is still confusing the Nobel Prize of 2025 with the Nobel Prize of 2026. Trump keeps saying, he's lying, of course, but Trump keeps saying, I brokered 8 peace agreements, 9, 10 peace agreements. I deserve the Peace Prize. Why didn't I get it? Well, first of all, because the Nobel nominating period ended January 31st of 2025. January 31st of last year was the cutoff date. When did Donald Trump become president again? January 20th. He was president for 11 days. That's it. When the Nobel Prize cutoff happened. It's like the Oscars, right? At some point, they can't keep reviewing new movies before the Oscars because they'd have to reopen the awards, right? Like the day before the Oscars, you can't release a movie the day before the Oscars and say, I didn't get an Oscar. Well, it's next year. It's not this year. Everything Trump did, if he did it, happened for next year's Nobel Prize, not for this year's. I told you guys this when it came up the first time. Remember? I said, you know for a fact, somebody explained to Donald Trump that no. You know, you're not going to get it this year because this year's Nobel Prize, meaning 2025, was for things done in office in 2024. You weren't in office in 2024. For all the stuff you did for 2025, that's next year's Nobel Prize, 2026. So Trump was told this, he had to have been, and he's still convinced that they took away his prize. Now, seriously, guys, I say this because it's not just to show Trump is wrong. There's something very wrong. Trump isn't wrong. He's wrong. There's something very wrong with you if you can't understand the simple concept that the stuff you did in 2025, Donald, is for the 2026 Nobel Prize. It was too late for the 2025. They didn't diss you. They didn't even consider you because it was too late for that year. It's for next year. The normal human being's response to that is, oh, that's it. It's, oh. Now, he could think he's not going to get it next year, and he'd be correct. He's never getting the Nobel Prize. But to freak out about it, there's something wrong with him if he is upset about not getting the Nobel Prize last year, because again, you get what I'm getting at. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but there's something it is indicative of something very wrong with him that he still doesn't understand something as simple as the cutoff date for the Nobel Prize. It suggests somebody who's just not quite there. Thank you, Lupo. Grazie. Thank you, Dave. Trump says there's no legal document giving Greenland to Denmark. Yeah, there is. The United States signed it in 1916, 1917. 1916, 1917. I forget. I always say 17 and then I saw 16, so I'm going to say both. The United States bought the Virgin Islands from Denmark. $25 million, something like that. As part of the deal, Denmark said, okay, we'll sell you the Virgin Islands, America, but as part of the deal, we want Greenland. We've had control of Greenland for hundreds of years, but we want you, America, to formally acknowledge that you recognize that we have Greenland. And the U.S. said, okay. So the U.S. signed the document. There's literally a document. I'm going to quote Trump again, okay? There are no written documents. It's only a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we have boats landing there also. There's literally a written document that we signed. The United States government, the president signed, probably the president, could have been the Secretary of State, signed the document. Oh, thank you, Mario. Mario's giving out free gift memberships over on YouTube. Matt, Shannon, Sphinx. You guys, I don't recognize you guys. I think you guys might be new. Tycho, Susie. Basically, you get extra emojis. Your name stays green for a month, so I know you're extra helpful people. And I do a special show Saturday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, for the paid monthly subscribers, TikTok, YouTube, Discord. So join us Saturday at 11 a.m. Thank you, Blue. Also, listen to this. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, but now can think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. You mean Donald Trump was making decisions about foreign policy not based on what is good and proper for America? Excuse me? Excuse me? The number one job and the only job of the President of the United States, thank you, Diana, is to do what is best for the United States. I've talked about this before. We even got into a little, not a spat, but I think some of you probably got upset because I mentioned it. But it's true. Every one of our governments, their only job is to look after their own people. It is. Thank you, Annie. Now, you can say it'd be nice if they looked after the world, blah, blah, blah. I'm with you. It'd be nice. Not their job. Not their job. Their job is to look after their own country. For Trump to say now he's going to start looking after America because he didn't get the Nobel Prize is crazy talk. Of course, or it's impeachment talk. Of course, right? You weren't looking after the United States of America last year. That's crazy. I forgot. Then he got interviewed by NBC today. Then he got interviewed by a big American TV network. Thank you, Tiki Taki, by a big American TV network, and said, he doesn't care about the Nobel Prize. I don't want the Nobel Prize. I'm not interested in it. Again, because last night he sent the text message bitching and moaning that he didn't get the Nobel Prize. Okay. The Norwegian prime minister comes out, has to issue a statement and says, yes, I did receive this. Apparently he said thank you, Marsha. He said under the Norwegian freedom of information or privacy laws or whatever they are, he has to reveal it. Apparently he said the prime minister has to reveal messages like this from foreign leaders. They can't keep them private in Norway. Well, Trump then, and then the prime minister of Norway goes public and says last night or this morning, I have no control over the Nobel Prize. There's a whole Nobel Foundation. It's an independent organization. In America, we'd call it a nonprofit. In Europe, you'd call it an NGO, non-governmental organization. It's a whole private entity that is in charge of the Nobel Prize. He said, thank you, Marsha. He said, I'm the prime minister of Norway. I don't get to pick who wins the prize. Well, so Trump responds today via NBC News and says, one, I don't want the prize. Who said I wanted the prize? Because I didn't want the prize. Okay. Now, mind you, look what he said last night. And now it's like a little kid. Now he's going, I don't want the prize. He then says in the same interview that hold on. I want to see if I can find the actual quote. It is paranoid what he said in the interview. He then went off about how basically the prime minister of Norway is conspiring against him, that he's lying, that he does control the prize and he didn't want Trump to get it. Hold on, let me pull this up. One moment. I want to find this. I should be able to find it. Yes, Trump dismissed the idea that Norway has no sway over the Nobel Peace Prize competition and that the decision is entirely up to the committee. Norway totally controls it, despite what they say, Trump told NBC News. They like to say they have nothing to do with it, but they have everything to do with it, Trump added. Now, this is a confession. We always talk about Trump. Trump's criticisms, Trump's observations very often end up being confessions, meaning he's telling you something about himself. Donald Trump says, how is it possible in a democracy that an organization can do what it wants without the leader of the country weighing in and strong-arming them to do what he wants, right? Donald Trump is suggesting that there's no way in Norway that an independent organization can do what it wants. Obviously, the prime minister can sway it, because that's how Trump operates, right? Look at all these articles we've had in the last week about the pardons and all the people who have donated money to Trump and his campaign and all that stuff to get pardons, and they did, right? We're going to talk. We're going to talk a lot more about this tonight, but I kind of want to make some observations. This is possibly the craziest thing he said to date. And I say that because he's talking about going to war, guys. He's talking about declaring war because he didn't get a prize, because he didn't find the toy surprise at the bottom of the cereal. He's talking about declaring war. That's not normal behavior. You could say a lot of Trump's other stuff is narcissistic, all this kind of stuff, right? Or again, psychologically, whatever. this is not right in the head. I mean, this is like totally not right in the head. Saying that you're considering going to war because you didn't get a prize. And again, adding the layers of it, of that he's writing to the Prime Minister of Norway and complaining that the Prime Minister of Norway didn't give him the Nobel Prize, so he's going to punish the Prime Minister of Denmark. Apparently thinking they're the same country or something. I don't even, I mean, he doesn't explain the connection, right? Again, and then he talks about security and Russia and China. No, you already confessed. You already admitted it was about the Nobel Prize, right? So why pretend it's about China and Russia? Also, they were pointing out the Trump administration put out a huge policy analysis or whatever 2 months ago about foreign policy and what the U.S. was going to focus on going forward. 2 months ago, they put this out. Not one mention of Greenland. No mention of Greenland. Yeah. Really interesting essay by Stephen Strauss. Stephen Strauss, you Europeans listen to this. Stephen Strauss, I believe Republican or conservative, but not a big Trump supporter. And he wrote an essay on his Substack that I Googled. I Googled about it, and he's telling the truth, which I was not aware. The gist of his essay is that, let me, hold on a second. I'm looking at this right now. Yeah, the gist of his essay was several governments, including European governments, store their gold with the Federal Reserve in New York. I was not aware of this. Several European governments store their gold supplies, their gold reserves in America under American control. Need I tell you what the rest of his essay is about? Right? I was not aware of this. I Googled it. What I was able to find was gold pertaining to central banks across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Market value exceeding 500 billion. Largest known gold depository in the world. What I was able to find was the countries that it looks like we could confirm. A lot of it's not confirmed. Netherlands. The Nederlandisch Bank says 31% of Dutch gold is in New York and explicitly says it's in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York vaults. 31% of your gold, Netherlands, is in New York under control by the U.S. government. Finland, Bank of Finland, lists storage locations and explicitly includes United States Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Germany, Reuters reports about 1/3 of Germany's gold is stored at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Other European countries that possibly, reporting suggests have gold there, but again, you'd have to confirm this. Best I could, because it's not like people talk about their gold, right? Possibly Italy, Poland as well. I'm telling you, there is no way I would trust at this point. Sure, before I would trust my gold being in America. Now, oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you, Marsha. Happy 2026. Wow. I had no idea. I read his thing. Thank you, Jen. I read his piece and I thought, that's kind of funny. Like, that can't be true that the Europeans keep their gold here. Oh, yes. Because how dangerous could it be to keep your gold in America? What would the Americans do to it? Why couldn't you trust the Americans? Right? Oh yeah, another big story that came this. So let's switch from Greenland for now. We'll switch from Greenland to the other horrible story in America, ICE, which is the immigration people that Trump is using as his own personal police force to go after Democrats. Lot of videos coming out this weekend, really horrific stuff. The Department of Justice announced this weekend it is launching a conspiracy investigation against the Democratic governor of Minnesota and the Democratic mayor of Minneapolis. You may recall the name of the Democratic governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. He was Kamala Harris's running mate. Donald Trump is accusing them of a criminal conspiracy, which is like a huge, charge, a huge allegation, because, get this, because they said mean things about ICE. He literally said, Trump's people literally said, the proof they've got of a criminal conspiracy, is that they said mean things about ICE. They said they didn't like ICE. They said they didn't want ICE there. Yeah, I'm a lawyer. That ain't a conspiracy. But the whole point here, every week now, we are, literally every week, we are finding out about more and more political enemies Donald Trump is now going after with the Justice Department, right? Last week, we found out he was going after several of those Democratic members of Congress. That was last week's, right? That he was trying to throw them in prison somehow for publicly stating, thank you, stressed, for publicly stating the truth that under U.S. law, under U.S. military law, it is illegal for our troops to follow an illegal order. Okay? Right? And now we've got, hang on here. Now we've got him trying to throw the Democratic governor of a state and the Democratic mayor of a city in prison for criminal conspiracy because they criticized him and his thugs, his thug police force. Civil rights investigation. In America, before Donald Trump, when police, we've talked about this last week, a friend of mine who was a cop was telling me about it. When police would even bring out a firearm, if they brought it out, they had to write a report. They had to write up a report. And certainly if they pointed it at somebody, forget it. There'd be so much paperwork if they pointed it at somebody, not even funny. If you fire it, oh my God, the paperwork. And if you actually kill someone, forget the paperwork, right? There's been no investigation of the guy who killed Renee Good. What was his name again? Was it Jonathan Ross? Help me out. Who now Kristi Noem accused on the Sunday show yesterday. Again, everybody knows the name of the guy. It's not a secret, right? His name's Jonathan Ross. Everybody knows his name. The media has reported this repeatedly. And on the weekend shows, on the Sunday shows, one of the big networks was talking to Kristi Noem and mentions the guy's name is Jonathan Ross. And she freaks out. Don't say his name. And the reporter's like, everybody knows his name. It's been reported everywhere. You're doxing him. They're trying to end this guy like back in the closet or something. But listen to this, Washington Post. This is from today's Washington Post. In the immediate aftermath of the death of Renee Good in Minneapolis, FBI agents launched a civil rights investigation into the actions of the immigration officer who shot her, according to 3 people familiar with the investigation. An agent in Minnesota conducted an initial review of the shooting and determined that sufficient grounds existed to open a civil rights probe into the actions of Jonathan Ross, the officer who shot Good. The existence of the civil rights investigation stands in sharp contrast to public statements made by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who said on Fox News Sunday that the shooting of Good does not warrant a federal investigation. Quote, "We investigate when it's appropriate to investigate, and that is not the case here." The Trump people say there's going to be no investigation. The actual FBI agents who don't work for the goons, the actual independent FBI agents who still are the normal people who work for the Constitution, did a preliminary investigation and determined that this shooting needed a civil rights investigation, and they initiated one. Now the Trump people are saying there's no investigation anymore. I mean, guys, I just, yeah. It's just astounding. Republicans are trying to throw reporter Don Lemon in prison because he's gay and he's black and he worked at CNN, and all of those are things, that they consider bad. I'm being quite serious. Those are the main reasons they don't like him. Don Lemon, very good guy. Want to get him on the show if we can ever figure out how to reach him. Don was tipped off that some anti-ICE protesters were going to protest in a church yesterday in St. Paul. Now, we can definitely have a discussion on whether you should be protesting in churches. Some gay activists in the 1980s protested in the Catholic Church. Again, interesting question. Back then, the Catholic Church was, helping basically spread the AIDS crisis, which was killing people. So interesting sort of trade-off there. Well, what happened this time was the protesters said that one of the pastors, and I heard today possibly the lead pastor at the church, the priest, we call him a priest, the pastor at the church was also an ICE agent on the side. His other job was being an ICE agent. And I Googled, and from what I could find, everything I found online seemed to confirm this was true from what I found. Well, the protesters decided to protest at his church while he was on the pulpit, which while he was there at the front of the church. And they disrupted the church. And again, it's a fair, I don't know what that means, Dave. Yeah. It's a fair discussion as to whether or not you should protest at churches. Oh, I see. Dave is saying, and he is saying, reportedly, he was a director of operations for the local field office. Oh, I see. So reportedly, he was not some junior staffer. He was a senior level staffer for the local office. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Okay, fair enough. Well, of course, the Trump Justice Department is investigating the protesters to see if they can throw them in prison, of course. And now this quote from this woman totally cracked me up. The Trump, I think she's the head of the Civil Rights Office, which, you can guess who they put in charge of the Civil Rights Office at the Department of Justice. Somebody who's anathema to civil rights. This woman at the Civil Rights Office tells a black gay man, a reporter, that he's not allowed to cover the protest because they told him about the protest. So he was there. He was there with his camera covering it. Trump's people are now trying to claim Don Lemon should go to prison because he was one of the protesters. No, he was a reporter covering the scene. Let me read you the quote from this woman. Her quote's insane. Again, she's, I believe, the head of the Trump Civil Rights Office of the Department of Justice. Her quote, I'm a lawyer. This quote is insane from a lawyer in America. A lawyer in China, in Moscow, in Berlin, of a certain era, this quote might make sense. In America, law? No. Quote from the Trump, this is from the Trump Department of Justice. A house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. Maybe. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal, criminal, and civil laws. Maybe. It hasn't really been determined. She's getting at the point where, that in America, we have freedom of religion under the Constitution, but we also have freedom of speech. So there's a very interesting legal issue here of if you protest in a church, right? If you protest in a church, you're exercising your freedom of speech, but you're impeding somebody else's freedom of religion because you've interrupted their service. So who wins? I mean, I'm a lawyer. It's an interesting legal question, right? Now, typically in the law, there are gradations of it, right? For example, impeding you from worshiping would be going in and saying, well, first of all, my guess is you might even have an issue of the motivation. Is it impeding? Is it infringing on your freedom to worship that, for example, the church doesn't pay its electric bill and the power gets shut off by the city? You can't worship on Sunday. Didn't they impinge on your freedom to worship? That's a civil rights violation. No, it's not. You didn't pay the bill. So it's not always, right? Just because your actions have stopped the church services on Sunday does not mean those actions are a civil rights violation. I would argue potentially you have to look at motivation. And then the question becomes, okay, did they shut down church services for a protest because they hate religion? No. Did they shut down church services for a protest because they didn't want people praying? No. Why did they shut it down? Because the pastor was complicit in a crime, they would argue, right? Because the pastor was complicit in, again, crimes, I would say. That would be the argument. You're not doing it. For example, would you not have protested if it was a different faith? If it was a rabbi who was an ICE director? No, they still would have protested. So they didn't pick out one religion. Would you not have protested if it was an entirely different job? And the guy was supposedly in a job that was helping people, but was actually secretly an ICE director? No, they probably would have protested that too. So you see what I'm getting at from a legal perspective? I would start to look at it and go, was this protest directed intentionally at religion, or was religion a side effect? Was religion sort of an ancillary impact? Like collateral damage was the religious service, right? Anyway, but the notion, I didn't finish reading her quote. The notion that you're going to throw Don Lemon, a journalist, in prison because the protesters told him before the protest what they were going to do, and he went and filmed it. No, in American law, no. Thank you, Ryan. Let me read the whole thing from her. A house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. This is the Trump administration. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal, criminal, and civil laws! Exclamation point. She uses a lot of exclamation points. Nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. You are on notice, she says to him. The First Amendment does protect his journalism because he didn't disrupt a prayer service. He filmed it. In journalism, you are absolutely, I will state categorically as a lawyer, people are allowed to tell you of their protest, and you're allowed to go and physically, visually watch their protest. You are under no obligation whatsoever to report that somebody else is going to do a protest. Absolutely, positively not. Absolutely, positively not. But listen to how she says it, though. Nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. You are on notice! Exclamation point. You are on notice. Lady, you're on notice because I'm a lawyer, and in American law, no. You don't get to tell a journalist you're going to jail because you don't like that he covered a protest that embarrassed you. No, these people, guys, and again, unfortunately, we're seeing every day they're doing more and more and more and more. ICE attacked a family of 8 this weekend. This story, actually, Jake Tapper shared this story. I don't recall the whether it was ABC or CNN that ended up having the story. I think it was CNN. ICE attacked a family of 8 this weekend. The family was driving through an area that there was an ICE protest, and they stopped the car. They had 8 people. They had kids and the baby. They had a 6-month-old baby in the car. They had young kids in the car. So they had 6 kids, 2 adults, and they stop and they pull over because, well, there's protesters and there's ICE and everybody all around them, right? The ICE guys start surrounding their car. Thank you, Nauseous, for the gifts. And thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Lee. Thank you. And the mom says, I told my husband not to drive away because we were, thank you, Bonzo, because we were in danger of that. We were surrounded by ICE guys. We would have hit them. And she said, I specifically remember what happened to Renee Good. They shot that woman last week because she tried to drive away. So I told my husband, don't drive away. Well, guess what the ICE agents did then? They, I want to get this exactly right. They threw tear gas under the car, flashbangs at the car. Flashbangs are these explosives that are super loud and give a lot of light to disorient you, but super loud explosion. Tear gas under the car to get everybody out of the car. They smoked the children out of the car. A 6-month-old baby stopped breathing as a result. Okay? 6-month-old baby stopped breathing as a result. This is what ICE did this weekend. ABC News. Thousands of people have been arrested during ICE operations in Minneapolis over the past 2 weeks. Multiple attorneys allege that for some of those detained, including at least one American citizen, the Department of Homeland Security is denying their constitutional right to an attorney. 4 attorneys told ABC News that they have been denied access to their clients at the federal building in Minneapolis where they are being held, which they said would violate the 5th and 6th Amendment rights to due process and the right to counsel. Quote, ICE agents were physically restricting me from seeing them, said one immigration attorney who asked not to be identified. Quote, I stood outside the attorney visitation room for about 4 hours on Thursday, trying to see one of my clients who had been there for multiple days. I kept saying, you've got to let me see my client. And they just kept repeating, we don't do attorney visitation. Again, I'm a lawyer. I'm an American lawyer. We don't do attorney visitation. Maybe if you're Al-Qaeda, like an American citizen, frankly, even a foreigner under arrest for an immigration protest, and we don't do attorney visitations. This is what I'm saying, guys. This is so dangerous and so scary. The irony is it's everything that people on the right have warned about for years about what a government could do, what it could become, and it's becoming that now. We don't do attorney. And by the way, we don't do attorney visitation means you've just lost all of your constitutional rights because they've got you in prison. You can't fight for your rights when you're in prison. If your lawyer can't see you, there's no way to get you out of there. I mean, it is unfair. And Congress, good question where Congress is, because I'd read today they're still trying to get ICE funded again. They're trying to get ICE funding done like this month. I read, the notion that Democrats are going to vote for anything funding ICE at this point. Axios, private. This was a good story. Private GOP polls show Trump immigration collapse. Top aides are worried and want to roll Stephen Miller. They want to fire Stephen Miller. Trump unnerved by images, but so far holding firm. The internal Republican polling that alarmed some Trump insiders was completed at the end of December, days before an ICE agent fatally shot Renee Good in Minneapolis. 60% of independent voters and 58% of undecided voters said Trump was, quote, too focused on deporting illegal immigrants, the poll said. 33% said Trump was primarily deporting law-abiding people as opposed to criminals. ICE is taking a reputational hit. 2 public surveys released this week, one from CNN, another from YouGov, found that most Americans said the agency was making U.S. cities less safe. Most Americans say ICE is making U.S. cities less safe. Another poll done for the Associated Press after Good's death found that just 38% of Americans now approve of Trump's immigration policies. The big pictures. This is, again, Axios, which is a very good political newspaper, magazine, whatever, media outlet in Washington. ICE's tactics are drawing pushback from some prominent Trump supporters. Joe Rogan, who endorsed Trump on the eve of the 2024 election, complained on his show this week about, quote, militarized groups of people roaming the streets, just showing up with masks on, snatching people up. Are we really going to be the the German, the German military police guys, the Gestapo, you know what I mean? I don't think I can say the name on TikTok. Gestapo. Rogan said, where are your papers? Is that what we've come to? Now, interesting, because Rogan was a big Trump supporter. Rogan helped get Trump elected. Rogan also represents a lot of the bros, like the dude culture that so supported Trump. And the fact that, and he already has been turning on Trump for a while, but that he would compare ICE to, what do we call them? Were they military police? What do we call them exactly? I was going to say like secret military police, the Gestapo people. Yeah, SS doesn't answer the question, Brittany. Were they basically military police? Special police? Yeah. Secret police? Okay. And people know what they were basically. Yeah. I forget secret state. I forget that it stands for secret state police. I doubt I can say that at all on TikTok. Are you kidding? People are going, you can say it on TikTok. You want to bet? You want to bet? I would bet you absolutely positively you can't say the word on TikTok. Unfortunately. All right, final story. Economy poll from Wall Street Journal. This was actually good from the Wall Street Journal. Listen to this. It's President Trump's economy now, and voters are increasingly unhappy with how he's handling it. By 15 percentage points, more voters rate the economy as weak rather than strong, a deterioration from July when negative views predominated by 4 points. About half of voters say the economy has gotten worse in the past year, compared with 35% who see improvements. Voters think Trump is focusing on foreign affairs and other matters at the expense of their most pressing concerns, rising prices and the overall economy. Listen to this, though. Still, support for Trump among his most loyal supporters remains remarkably resilient. Some 92% of people who voted for Trump in 2024 give him a positive job rating today. 92% of Trump voters give him a positive job rating, including 70% who strongly approve. This is why I say a couple things. One, they're responsible, hold them accountable. Two, stop trying to win them over, move on to people in the middle. Somebody last night on Twitter was telling me, oh, you're not going to win Trump supporters over like that. And I said, who wants to win Trump supporters over? That's ridiculous. Anybody who thinks Donald Trump is 92% approval is gone. Not winning them over. We need the left and we need the middle. We don't need and we can't get people on the right. Stop trying to get them. There are some, sure. If you can convince some people, why not? But your focus should be on people in the middle. It should not be on any kind of cult-like numbers of 92%. All right. Let's hang. That's it for today's show. I mean, it's not it. I'm still here. It for today's show in terms of the content. We're trying a test today. The dog did just try to get more water, and I refused to go, and she went back to her bed. So we're trying a little test, a little test. Anyway. Yeah. So Greenland, absolutely crazy what's going on. Absolutely, positively crazy what's going on with Greenland. You know. Yeah, Skin Job. I don't even know what you're talking about. Skin Job wrote something that I probably can't even read, but thinks that. Have you been listening to the show? This person is concerned that we're trying to take care of freeloaders and not American taxpayers. Well, okay. First of all, you might want to research the topic because people have been lying to you. Federal benefits don't go to people who are here illegally. They literally don't get them. They're banned from getting them. You were lied to repeatedly. Google the topic. I'm quite serious. Google it. Any federal benefits, welfare, hospital, whatever you think it is, from the federal, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it is, Google it. Social Security. People who are here illegally do not get federal benefits. They're banned. Obamacare, banned. Right? They don't get it. So that's the first problem, is you were lied to. Second point, we're talking about going to war with NATO and ending the NATO alliance after 70 years and giving the Russians an entree into declaring war in Europe and the Chinese an entree into declaring war against Taiwan. The last of my concerns right now is Trump's actual immigration policy. That's like the bottom of my concern right now is Trump is kicking out too many illegals. I could care less if he's kicking out people who are here illegally, to be honest. More or less, I care this much. If you're here illegally, we've talked about this. You should go after the criminals first, but we're talking about killing American citizens. We're talking about arresting American citizens and not giving them access to a lawyer. We're talking about going to war with Greenland because Trump said last night he didn't get the Nobel Prize, so he wants Greenland, which makes no sense at all. So that's what we're talking about. But feel free to look and see. Well, correct. Fromfrey said, I'm undocumented. I pay taxes. I get no benefit from it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right, though. You're not entitled to federal benefits. Yeah. And people, they like to pass this lie that you're getting federal benefits. And it's like unbelievable, But again, I always say, if the truth is too impalatable for your unpalatable, you lie, right? They seem to think a lie will go over better with their base than the truth. So they don't tell them the truth. Right? Very scary stuff. Anyway. Yes, you would have to sue. Good Life is saying, can a lawyer who didn't get to see their client sue? Yes. And they would have to, and hopefully the judge will be able to get them in there. Hopefully. I mean, who the hell knows, right? Very scary stuff though. You know, oh man, very, very scary stuff. What else? What else, guys? I'm from Illinois originally. Well, that's the problem. Somebody said, why, if they're convicted criminals, are they not being deported? But that's the problem. 70% of those deported apparently weren't criminals at all. They promised us they were going to go after the criminals, and they went after all the regular people. And now they're going after a lot of regular Americans too, but they're going after all the regular people and not the actual criminals. Right. You know? Yeah, this was a couple days ago. D. Elliott's mentioning a story from a couple days ago. 4 ICE agents had lunch. It was lunch, actually. They had lunch at a Mexican restaurant in Minnesota. Later that day, they went back and arrested them. They went back and arrested the people working there, but they went and had lunch first. I mean, just amazing, these people, you know? When is Congress going to act? Never, because Republicans control the Congress. Keep in mind, the reason Congress isn't acting and doing anything is the House and Senate are controlled by the Republicans. They have the majority. They don't want to go after Trump. Now, one thing that I was thinking about this recently, it doesn't quite make sense to me, but Trump making his weird comment last week to Republicans about how, we need to win the election in the fall because if we don't, they're going to impeach me again. And I was trying to figure out why he cares, right? Because, first of all, it makes me think he does care, because the big issue for Republicans in Congress isn't, if we lose control of the House of Representatives, they'll impeach Donald again. The big issue for Republicans in Congress is, if we lose control of the House of Representatives, we lose our seats, right? We lose the committees we control. We lose the money we control. We lose our power. That's why Republicans don't want to lose control of the House. They don't care if Trump gets impeached again, because impeachment doesn't really do anything. As we saw last time, for impeachment to do something, you've got to win in the House of Representatives and then win again in the U.S. Senate. Trump was impeached twice in the U.S. House. So he was impeached. Majority vote. Majority, you're impeached. But then it goes to the Senate and you've got to be convicted, it's called, to remove you from office. It needs a supermajority, two-thirds, I think always that's gone through, 2/3, as I recall now, vote. So like 67 votes of 100 to kick you out of office. That's never happening. All right, I will give the dog water now. That's never happening. 1 second, we'll continue. So what fascinates me, though, is then why did Trump mention it? Trump didn't mention getting impeached because Republicans care. They don't care if he gets impeached. Trump, I think Trump is legitimately freaked out about getting impeached again. And it fascinates me. I think he really, from a reputation perspective, it really bothers him. And good, right? So it kind of makes, because at first I was thinking, why does another impeachment matter? I have no way to reach out to Don Lemon, Rebecca. I wish I could. I can't. I messaged him on TikTok, but I have no way to reach him. But yeah, so I will say this, though. I think the concern with impeaching Trump is voters thinking it's silly, right? That's, I think, the concern is that it looks like, we elected you, and rather than focusing on the economy, now you're focusing on Trump. There's always that concern among Democrats and it is true that the voters don't seem to understand why we need to. Okay, thanks, Poppy. I love Don. Let him know I was on his show a couple years ago. We had fun. I had fun. Because I remember he and I were laughing behind the scenes, but he was in New York. I was in DC. But we were talking about something, I don't even, could have been 2020 at this point. What is impeachment, Paula? What can trigger it? So impeachment is censure. I'm going to call it. It's censure, really. It's, you're a bad man. So it doesn't kind of do anything, really. It is triggered by a majority of the House of Representatives voting in favor of it. If they vote in favor of it, you're impeached. There's a process. You hold hearings, blah, blah, blah. But basically, a simple majority, right, has to vote in favor and you're impeached. I call it censure because it really is, meaning you're a bad man and we're telling you you're a bad man. That's all it is. But it looks really bad because historically it hasn't happened to that many presidents. What gets interesting is whether the next shoe drops. If what you did was really bad, then the vote goes from the House of Representatives where you're impeached to the United States Senate, where they vote whether to punish you, in essence, whether to convict you of the impeachment. And if they convict you with a 2/3 vote, you're kicked out of office. Like, you're gone. And I think you may even lose your retirement, you lose your Secret Service protection, lots of stuff. So it matters because it is one of the ways it's actually one of the two ways of removing Trump from office legally is impeachment. That's why it matters. Paula, I would delete that just to be safe. You don't want to be saying stuff like that. Yeah. Or I'm going to remove it for you. You don't want to say stuff like that. Even though you're over there, don't. And it doesn't help us over here either for you to have for those discussions to be in our forums. They get freaked out with that stuff over here. The other way is the 25th Amendment. It's the majority. I forget what the number is again. What percentage of the cabinet finds that he's removed? You know. So, well, the only thing is 25th Amendment still has a workaround where Congress can, what is it? The president can disagree and then it goes to Congress for a vote. So it's still a freaking mess. Yeah, I think I wrote Don already. I'll grab that again, but I'm pretty sure I already wrote him before. I'll write him again, but I'll write him again, but I did write him before. So anyway, crazy stuff, guys. Absolutely crazy stuff. No, is China going to invade Taiwan? Maybe. If I were China, this stuff is great. What's happening? What Trump is doing is great if you're China. He's weakening the Western alliance. If China invades Taiwan, they don't want America getting involved. Up until Trump, I thought we would. Now, who knows? They don't want Europe getting involved, right? Helping the Taiwanese. If America got involved, up until now, we would make the Europeans get involved with us, meaning maybe they'd do it willingly, or we would turn to our allies and say, please, you've got to help us, right? Now, with this going on, if in fact Europe decides it doesn't want to get involved, do you think they're going to get involved to defend Taiwan because Donald Trump asks them to nicely? No. Thank you for the gifts, guys. Thank you, Lady Bond. Keep the gifts coming, guys. Right? No. If Trump destroys NATO, even less of a chance of the Europeans and the Canadians getting involved in defending Taiwan. Even more so, it's not just Trump. Trump destroys NATO. Let's say Trump actually invades Greenland. Let's say there's even a war between Europe and America. There might be. If you're Russia, you go, this is great. If you're China, you go, this is great. Why? Because now you can grab more land that you want. Granted, Russia doesn't have a lot of men right now because they're kind of bogged down in Ukraine. Still, I would be worried about Russia grabbing some of the border with Poland, some of the borders with the Baltic states. I always forget Estonia, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, I believe is the order. I know Lithuania is on the bottom. So the top two border Russia. I would worry about them taking some of the land from those guys, possibly taking some of the land from Poland, because again, Europe's at war with America. And okay, not only is Europe at war with America and Europe's having to deal with America when Russia does this, but America is clearly not coming to Europe's aid against Russia if America is at war with Europe, right? That's not going to happen, right? So that's not going to happen. And China, the same thing. If America and Russia, and if I were China, I would also talk to the Russians and say, you know what? If Trump does this, maybe we both want to invade at the same time. So now America and Europe are going, right? America and Europe are weaker, and there's now two fronts they've got to fight on: Russia invading Europe and the Chinese invading Taiwan, which makes it even harder to defend them. It's not good. Heather, these things are not being discussed like the 25th Amendment or impeachment because Republicans are obviously all members of Donald Trump's cabinet, and that's who has to institute the 25th Amendment or invoke it, and Republicans control the Congress, and that's who has to impeach him. I mean, this is what is so screwed up about our system, is you elect the wrong people and suddenly the system falls apart. Absolutely falls apart. You know? Very scary stuff. North Korea could try with South Korea too. That's a good point, Medic. Yep. It's absolute possibility. You're the top of the Baltics. I know. You're the top. You're the Tower of Pisa. Or you're the Mona Lisa. I don't know. The currency reserve stuff I've been Googling, very complicated. From what I'm seeing, it's not clear. It's not clear on the financial stuff that Europe can hurt us, mortally, at least initially, but they can hurt us on the trade, number of things like that. Turkey and Greece is possible too. I didn't even think of that. There's a good point too. That's entirely possible too. Turkey decides to grab some land too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I saw this. JTA is mentioning something that the Europeans were talking about. I think Macron was talking about it. European Union may be implementing the trade bazooka. For this to be activated, only 15 of 27 countries have to agree. Oh, that's it. I didn't know that. That's very interesting. It's a smart move, probably not Trump's idea, to punish only 8 European countries with tariffs and not the whole EU because other countries don't want to hit back. Oh, I see. That's interesting. That is interesting. I didn't realize that. You're right. I mean, I know I forgot to mention that story too. This weekend, we also found out that Trump is going to put increasing tariffs on 8 European countries who don't agree with his declaring war on Denmark. It's like, what? And by the way, he already concluded the trade deal with Europe. Remember last time he declared a trade war on you people? They reached a deal. The Europeans were just getting ready to vote on the trade deal. And now the members of the European Parliament are going, forget it. We're not going to vote on this now, which I don't blame them. They shouldn't vote on it now. But crazy stuff. I mean, absolutely crazy stuff. And it also teaches you a lesson that no deal with him is ever going to be enough. He's always going to come back and hit you with more sanctions, hit you with more trade sanctions or whatever. Always, 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 always oils, right? Amazing. But especially that, like I said, they reached this trade deal, and now Trump is torpedoing the entire trade deal with Europe by doing this. It's like, all right. I know people do tolerate him, and it's again, what we learned was our system has no way of stopping someone who's crazy, which is very scary. I mean, no, for all intents and purposes, there's no way to stop him. Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. We're waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on tariffs and whether Trump's use of the tariffs is legal. It's probably not. His people keep claiming, well, if the Supreme Court strikes it down, we've got more things we're going to do. So who knows what he's going to do next? I mean, who knows? I don't think that. I don't think the world. I mean, I don't think the world's going to cash out all their treasury bonds. Maybe. I mean, I think the world should hold us responsible. Frankly, I don't know that they will. You know, I don't know that they will if he decides to invade Greenland. Yeah, that's the problem, Josh. 250 years of a nation run as a gentleman's agreement. That's exactly it. We had no idea this entire country was holding together by a bunch of people agreeing not to be fascist and not to be crazy. You know, I never saw this coming. I mean, I saw Trump being, I mean, yes, sure. We all saw Trump possibly be, remember, I'm the guy who went on the BBC election night 2016, and the BBC guys blew me off after a minute because they thought I was too hysterical about Trump. Oh, John, it's not going to be that bad. There are checks and balances in America. Anything he wants to do, Congress will stop him. These idiots at the BBC said to me, yeah, I win. I win. So yeah. This is not all about Epstein. No, not at all. Epstein has a role, sure. To the degree it changes the topic from Epstein, that's great. You're seeing a fascist takeover of our country. Again, people need to get, I've been sort of jumping on people a little bit in the comments on my TikTok videos. If you think this is about Epstein, you need to sort of step back and look a little bit at what's going on around you, because there's very, very dangerous things taking place right now. And you need to take stock of that and not think that this is not a diversion. This is the end of democracy. This is not just a diversion. This is very serious stuff that's taking place right now. Epstein is this much of the equation. This is literally talking about ending democracy in our country and these guys staying in power. That's Epstein has nothing to do with that. Epstein was a diversion. And you run a real risk by thinking this is about Epstein, because you're letting him, again, it only took a month and a half for the Germans to get rid of democracy over there in the 1930s. It doesn't take long for this stuff to go, and it's going. Focus on the actual threat right now. Epstein could ruin him. Good. What are you going to do about it? Well, you got files? No, but I'm saying, like, what are you going to do about it? You got files to release? Keep talking about Epstein? Sure. No, I think keep talking about it. Sure. But there's nothing we can do about it right now, and he's destroying the country. We've got to stand up right now on everything. Yeah, his slogan to the Proud Boys. Remember that one? When he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by, and then denied he was basically suggesting these white supremacists, he was going to use them. And then now, very scary stuff. Well, SAS is talking about European countries no longer buying weapons from the U.S. You're nuts if you buy weapons from the U.S. at this point. I think at this point, doing business with the U.S. is like doing business with a third world country. The political risk involved is significant. The political and economic risk. We are no longer a nation of laws. Your investments are at risk because we're no longer, I would say, a stable government. We're no longer a government that can guarantee your money, such as having your gold here. Your business is not safe here, as Trump has shown. He's willing to weigh in left and right and order businesses to do whatever he wants. What he's showing with Greenland, he could do to any of your companies. He could nationalize your companies if he wanted to. Take your assets. Why couldn't he just freeze your European assets that are in U.S. banks too? No, I at this point, I was telling somebody yesterday, feel free to keep doing trade with America if you want. But again, you're dealing with a third world country now. You're dealing with a place that isn't safe, that isn't a democracy. The rule of law is not respected. The economy is no longer respected because you see what he's trying to do with the Federal Reserve. So you can't trust inflation. You can't trust that the trade deal is going to stay in place. You can't trust that he's not going to end it in the middle of the deal. You can't trust that he's not going to take your weapons away, or he's going to, if your weapons for some reason are dependent on spare parts from America, Is Trump going to take your spare parts away if he gets mad at you? Yes. So again, you're doing business with somebody very dangerous if you do business with our country. And maybe you still do business with that, but the cost of doing business just got a lot more expensive. As I said, it's like dealing with a third world country now, with a lot of political risk and a lot of danger, where you can't trust the what's going on. I don't have my passport yet, but I would move if I had to. Sure. Why not? I mean, as far as if I had to move, yeah, I'm not going to stay. I'm not going to give up my citizenship, but I'm not going to stay here if the things keep going the way they're going. Still waiting for it. It's going to take 6 months at least. So anyway, it might be. Don't know, Peter. Peter's saying, is it illegal to tell U.S. forces to invade Greenland? It might be. Generals can refuse. Yes. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't know. I think even for them, it gets kind of complicated, as far as what's an illegal order and what isn't, Anyway, la, 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 la. Yep. Very scary stuff. He might try to arrest the generals, but these are not men who are faint of heart, men and women. You know what I mean? So it would be very interesting if he told them to seize Greenland. I don't know what would happen. Illegal for Greenlanders to attack invading U.S. military? Not at all. What do you mean illegal? You have an invading army trying to take over your country. Why would it be illegal? Wouldn't be illegal. An air base in Greenland, we used to have like 15 15 bases in Greenland, 20,000 men. Now we've got like a couple hundred, and we have the right to put as many as we want. You don't hear about that because, right? Trump isn't doing this for security. He's doing this because he wants to own Greenland to expand the size of the U.S. and because he's pissed about the Nobel Prize. Right? Yeah. Anyway, very, very scary stuff. Very much like a baby. Yeah. Oh man. I did not know that. Paula says there used to be nukes. Well, no, I knew the plane crashed with nukes in it. Is that what you mean? Or do you mean they stored them there? I know the plane crashed, if that's what you mean. I know, you're right. Trump. Oh, that's what you meant by Trump land. Somebody said that he wants to call it Trump land. I didn't realize what you were talking about Greenland. Oh, they tried storing them there. I did not know that. No. I knew there was a U.S. plane that went down with nukes in Greenland, but I did not know about storing them there. That's crazy. Is he smarter than a fifth grader? No. I mean, no, he's politically the thing is, Trump is politically very smart. He's not a smart man, but I think con men may not be intelligent, but they're very politically smart, There's talk about Europe boycotting the World Cup. I can't believe you people are even coming. I mean, the idea that there's talk, why in God's name would anybody want to come here? I just don't understand. With all the threats they've made about foreigners, with what they're threatening to do at the border, going through your phone. I mean, you see what they do on the streets to our own citizens. How in God's name would you want to step foot in this country? I really don't understand it. And I would argue, after everything this government has done, why would you want to come here and spend money and go to the World Cup here? Why would you want to give Trump? This is like the Olympics in, what was it? 1936, I believe. 36 or 34? 36, wasn't it? 36, the Olympics. Why would you want to come and give credibility to the world? I really don't understand why anybody would come here for the World Cup. 36. Thanks, Mike. And you run the risk of being turned away at the border. You're going to spend all that money on airfare and hotels. And what if they don't like what's on your phone at the border? Like there's There's no way I wouldn't go to a country like this. Like, I mean, I've been to the Soviet Union. Like, I went then. I wouldn't go to Russia now. You know, no way. Can the World Cup be moved? Who cares? Who cares? Don't go. People should not be going at this point. I wouldn't go. No way. That's the one. Okay. Thanks, Dream. Yeah. The US. Yeah. I remember I saw actually maybe somebody was sharing it on Twitter this weekend. It was the news broadcast about the plane crashing and the search for the weapons or whatever. Yeah. You know. Yeah, no, exactly. I cannot imagine coming to this country. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. There's, yeah. And right, you run the risk of being detained. I mean, again, they're not letting Americans see lawyers. Do you know what they would do to you potentially? I mean, like oh God. Again, this is like, to me, this honestly, you know what it reminds me of? Hungary. I am creeped out by Hungary. I have always wanted to go to Hungary. Now I wouldn't feel safe in Hungary because of all the work I've done online politically. I wouldn't touch foot in Hungary because I don't think I do not feel safe there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would not feel safe in that country. You're going to and you know what too? I'll tell you what, you voted for him. You know, I mean, you voted for him twice. I kind of hold the Hungarians responsible for that one. And the same way that you should hold Americans responsible. We voted for him. You know, people here voted for this guy twice. You can't say don't blame Americans. Yeah. Like, we're still a democracy. We voted for him, you know? But I feel the same way. Like about Hungary, there's no way I would go to Hungary. You know? Anyway, trying to do what we can to fix it, T, as you know. All right, guys, I'm going to go. It's 7:20. Thank you for joining us. Yes, I know about Slovakia. I know Mr. Fizzo. He's a real winner as well. All right, guys. Have a good day. I will see you all tomorrow, 6:00 Eastern. Thank you for joining. Scary news. Sorry. What do you do? Don't think it's going to get any better. We have to try to find like happier news. Yeah, exactly. Iran, same thing. Would you go to Iran? No. Would you go to Russia right now? No. So anyway, all right, guys, have a good night. Thank you all. All right. Discord. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Ash. See you guys. Oops. End stage. Boom. All right. All right. YouTube. Good to see you guys. Thank you.